All right, game plan is to probably just shoot the shit about whatever. I don't know, man. I was going to talk a little bit about why empires are bad. Maybe talk about a little bit of that in a historical sense. Oh, thanks. What's up, Cookie? How are you? What's up? Is it Chauncey? How you doing, man? But yeah, we're going to kind of talk about empires, which has been the theme a lot lately. I do want to talk about why I think there's something that maybe I'm not understanding, but seems kind of obvious to me that's being like missed in the conversation about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Um, and it's like I don't know. So obviously, due process is a really important conversation right now, given what the Trump regime is doing. Um, but with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, unless I'm missing something, it's already been a situation where the State Department had to acknowledge that this was an administrative error, right? So it's not some situation where, like, there's an accusation of behavior or something, and then, he's got to have his time in court to see if this is true or not. They already admitted this was a fucking error. He doesn't even need his day in court. He doesn't even need due process. He doesn't need to be in court. There's no fucking question. He shouldn't be where he is. There's no this isn't like what I'm saying. There's other situations where I think there's obviously false fucking charges and false things being accused of, right? And they're not getting their due process, right? But in this situation, it's they already said it was an error. They already said it was a mistake. So I don't really think it makes sense even. But obviously, what's up, Itsy? Easy. But in general, obviously, yeah, due process conversation. Even that one's kind of a weird one from my perspective, because due process in the United States of America has always been a selective kind of thing, right? A little bit mythical, depending on where you stand beneath the flag, right? Beneath the shadow or the fake light. So that part's kind of difficult for me because so many times people point to like these American institutions as like we're losing this, we got to do this. It's like, bro, it's always been lost because it's always been corrupted from the perspective of a lot of us, right? And I think that's what's so difficult in a lot of these conversations is you got to really make sure you understand where someone's coming from in terms of like how they attach themselves to the system and to its institutions and to the pillars that kind of facilitate this shit, right? And so that's where it gets kind of difficult because so many people are just talking past each other, man. If you don't understand the perspective, thank you, I appreciate that. If you don't understand the perspective that someone's kind of really coming from in terms of like how they feel about this shit, what their kind of take is on history, right? Why they think certain things have happened, who they think, kind of facilitates shit, and what they want to happen. If you don't know the answer to those questions, you're probably not prepared to actually have a genuine conversation, especially with how quickly people kind of get triggered by certain terms, right, within these conversations and how quickly that kind of eliminates true thought, right, and critical thinking is kind of triggers this kind of indoctrination, right, with all the messaging that we get hit with, and none of us are immune to it, right? Even so, something my kind of background, right, is I'm pretty close to finishing off my school, is specifically mass media, but really communication. And dude, I'm pretty good with this shit. And even I, every day, I'm finding things where I'm like, oh fuck, I missed that, or oh man, I wasn't clear with that. You got to be critical with yourself, and to think that any of us are uh, immune to this would be pretty delusional, right? So. What's up, Carnage? People fear the unknown. That's why exposure is important. People do fear the unknown. I don't know if they necessarily fear the unknown, but it's really easy to fear the unknown if you allow someone to frame it for you and you don't have access to it yourself, right? So I think we can easily become fearful of the unknown, but I don't think that we're inherently fearful of the unknown, right? I don't think that we see that behavior like in young people, for example. I think young people can be incredibly courageous and brave and curious. Actually, maybe they don't even know any better, right? They don't know to fear the unknown sometimes. We teach them that, and how we teach them to fear the unknown can take a lot of different forms, right? And what is the unknown, right? Depends on your level of awareness and engagement and education and all that good shit, right? So, I'm doing good, Carnage. Just got back from DC. So I was in DC for a quick little trip over there, kind of helping out with the Organization of Iranian American Communities, right? Doing some advocacy work. The biggest thing for me, I thought the most important thing was the vigil that we held for a lot of the fallen martyrs, a lot of the people who've been murdered by the Iranian regime, right, in the last 40 years, and then the Shah before that, right? So we were there to honor them and the sacrifices a lot of them have made in terms of revolutionary action, right, trying to bring freedom, democracy, human rights, secularism, right, to Iran. And a lot of that is also anti-imperialism, right? Obviously, the Shah was a Western-backed monarch, right, who was fairly brutal in his own ways. That's not to say that what came after the 1979 revolution, right, with the Islamic Republic, hasn't been so much worse. But Western-backed monarch, theocratic, regime. I'm gonna say no to both, right? That was what we were doing there that night, and then we are also just going around and trying to talk to congressional staff who had either co-sponsored a resolution that we're trying to get support for, or haven't co-sponsored it yet and put a little friendly pressure on them. So just got back a little bit tired today, but it was cool. Thanks, Cookie. Thanks, Carnage. Yeah, I thought it was it's hard to describe it. It felt like a little bit there's a massive contradiction there, right? When you're sitting in front of in front of the Capitol, right? When you're in the very heart of the motherfucking beast, right? Sitting there in front of it, and then you're trying to pay homage to victims in so many ways of this very thing, right? And the indirect ripples of it. One thing I thought was kind of cool was we're kind of paying tribute to some of the resistance groups, right? And that is some of their Islamic Marxists, right? And we're saying a little bit of a fuck you right there in front of all of them. At least is how I like to kind of think of it. So that part was kind of cool, especially given the climate that we live in right now and some of the rhetoric about communists and socialists and anarchists coming from the regime. So it was nice to be right there, the fuck in front of them, and saying what the fuck we want to say. So yeah, I mean, what's happening with Palestinians right now, and I also feel like we got to start really making sure we kind of point out that the Congo and Sudan and Yemen, right, and all of these just incredibly cruel genocides and humanitarian crises, right? Yeah, I mean that's why at this point in time, there's no excuses. You don't have any excuses. Seeing is believing. Well, you have access to it right here. These are the most documented examples of human cruelty ever. Literally, the most documented, most visible. Maybe not the most documented. I don't know about that, but most visible. I know I'm gonna say most documented. Most documented, certainly most visible examples of human cruelty on a mass scale ever. And so you don't really have an excuse at this point in time. I'm kind of sick of the whole like, oh, they're nice people. Nah, man. Like I was talking to someone I really respect about this, all these things last night. I think they know so much more than me on certain topics. But when it comes to conflict, I don't think a lot of people really understand that just the very nature of it stripped down. And like kind of the concept, the banality of evil, right? And then the tolerance paradox, right? At some point, you got to understand. I'm not saying there's a specific numbers, like a specific truth, but I think there's something kind of general to this, especially within our environment, our climate, and the world that we live in, and kind of what we founded this shit upon, right? I do think you kind of have almost three groups, right? I think there's this group of 10 to 20% of motherfuckers that are just going to be outright shit stains, man. These are just unapologetic, in your fucking face, loud and proud, absolutely fucking awful MAGA motherfuckers, right? Just the worst fucking among us, right? We're an already shitty group of people here in America, and they are just so fucking dreadful, right? I mean, I don't know what you want me to fucking say. It should be on site with them, right? You shouldn't be sharing fucking Easter with your MAGA family right now, for example. You shouldn't be sharing Easter with your MAGA fucking friends right now, because those shouldn't be fucking things. You shouldn't have family or friends that are fucking MAGA. These are overt, in your face, disgusting, despicable fucking fascists who might as well have the fucking horns on, okay? If your friends or family with them, you're part of the problem because you're that middle group of motherfucking people that probably value your comfort and peace and safety within all this more than actually fucking opposing them. When you're not around them, you'll be like, man, my fucking this person or that person right there so fucking this and that. But then when you're with them, you don't say shit about shit. That ain't cool either. Unless, like, obviously it's a super dangerous or harmful situation. You got to think about your safety. I understand that, right? And then you probably should just remove yourself from these types of things, honestly. But if you have a level of privilege, certainly someone like me, right? If you have a level of privilege like I do within some of these spaces, you shouldn't be just existing there, man. You should be a motherfucking problem. You should be a disruptor. You should be an agitator. You should be Captain Motherfucking Buzzkill at the absolute minimum. At the absolute minimum, right? So honestly, nothing to be gained from these people, but just straight opposing them. But the problem is we have a bunch of motherfucking maintenance type of people that don't understand that Trump is not the disease. Trump is a motherfucking symptom, right? He is the symptom and the unmasking of what's always been. MAGA, make America great again. Make America great again. What's America always been? It's always been genocide. Genocide on genocide on genocide. That's what America is, right? Genocide to facilitate profit for an elite few, right? And they just keep finding ways to fucking rebrand that shit and market that shit. And the reason why so many of us put up with that shit is because we get cheap toys. We get cheap little things to distract us from the horrors, right? Ooh, look at this little app here. Look at this little trinket here. Oh man, this fucking car here is pretty nice, right? And we're chasing this material bullshit, right? And all this material bullshit comes to the expense of the global south and so many different parts of the world. And we know these things, right? Nobody who's actually rational and reasonable is going to fucking like act like this is not the way the world's constructed when you talk about capitalism and shit like that. But then we find just these amazing ways to do mental gymnastics and fucking find ways to rationalize and say, oh, well, the world's complex and it has to be this way and it's always been this way and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Sorry, catching some of it. Yeah, 82. Yep, thanks, Cookie. What's up, Skilled One? Sorry, I missed your comment. But yeah, man, that's why it's kind of I think what we have to understand is a lot of people within our society, we don't value human rights. We don't believe in human rights. Um, you certainly can't believe in human rights if you're a capitalist, right? And when people say, "Oh, like I'm a capitalist," what fucking means of production do you own? Like, what part of the supply chain are you tapped into? Like, let's talk about that. You're not a fucking capitalist. You're a simp. That's cool. Just own it, right? Just be real. You're not a fucking capitalist. Those are the billionaires. Those are the big boys. Those are the ones that are making the decisions that impact your fucking life and you keep voting for, right? So, like, and by the way, like that goes for liberals and that goes for Democrats. What do you think the Democrats are? They're pro-capitalism. They're pro-empire. They're pro-USA. They're pro-imperialism. They're pro-Israel, right? You don't live in the United States of America. You might live in Western Israel right now. And the algorithm doesn't like it when we talk about these things, right? We can't acknowledge the fact that when I'm walking through the halls of Congress, right? You know how many fucking stickers there are and little posters there are next to every single goddamn door saying, I stand with Israel, I stand with Israel, I stand with Israel. Fuck Israel, bro. Free Palestine. Fuck Israel. Like, fuck Israel. So, absolutely just disgusting fucking despicable state. This shouldn't exist, quite frankly. So, but then you got people like, was it Murkowski, right? The moderate Republican Murkowski, who's talking about how like she's afraid to speak up and say things because like of like the retaliation possibility from Trump, and that's the fucking problem right there, is man. You got people who actually know what's going on, they're afraid to fucking say shit, and then you got ignorant ass people that are so fucking tapped into American exceptionalism that they don't think it can happen to us, right? Nobody ever thinks it can happen to them, and they think that like our institutions, our checks and balances are like these like what invisible magical fucking barriers that just like got erected like it's Harry Potter, like, and it's just like, oh, can't fucking penetrate that. The founders were fucking magical wizards who fucking erected these beautiful defenses that'll protect us forever, despite the fact they were genocidal pieces of shit, right? So, like, I don't know. It's cool. It really is a neat trick being like a pro-America, like pro-capitalist, pro-empire kind of person. It's impressive. So, good stuff. Is deleting your comments? They need to resign. They do need to resign if they're scared, right? And get some of the more kind of youthful energy in here that's a little more tapped in and has a better perspective of what's actually happening on the ground amongst real fucking people, man. Against like your average everyday fucking people. So, I don't know. What's everyone doing for their Easter today? Do people celebrate? Kind of seems hard to celebrate, to be honest. I'm not like trying to disrespect anybody. I'm not a Christian, and I don't really fuck with Christianity, to be honest. Not that I'm anti-Yeshua, but just seems hard to celebrate. Even it's hard to celebrate 420, even, man. I don't know. Chilling with my cat, nice. Heard I chilled with my cat a little bit. Mr. Gracie, my little black cat. He's the goat. No disrespect to your cat. I'm sure your cat's goated too. That used to be like a big dog guy. Like all that dogs are the best. Dogs are the best. And dogs are dope. I fucking love dogs. So I'm always gonna love dogs. They're amazing, beautiful animals, man. Hey, who's the nerd? No use. But like cats are fucking dope, man. I was sleeping on them. Like cats are fucking cool as all hell. And I kind of think cats get a bad rap because dogs are seen as more masculine and cats are seen as more feminine. And like beneath the patriarchal structure of society, I don't know, man. I think they get hit with some of that. Like I think they get like residual fucking misogyny and sexism, straight up. I know that kind of sounds wonky, but I think cats are unfairly hated on. So like way unfairly hated on. Like I think that's actually a red flag. Now, not if someone like I don't really like cats that much, like I don't like, or I'm allergic. Yeah, I get it. Or they had a bad incident or something, right? But like if a motherfucker just straight like I hate cats, it's on site energy, that's a red flag. Massive, massive red flag. Massive red flag. Like, oh no, an animal that like has boundaries. Shit. And dogs have boundaries too, by the way. You guys just like ignore them, and they're just like too sweet to enforce them usually. Stick in your fucking faces and your dog's faces and shit. They don't always like that shit, bro. They just put up with it because they fucking love you. Although my cat does. I know he puts up with my shit. All right, I got off track. We're talking about cats and dogs here. Oh yeah, the USA fucking sucks. All right, no, I'm not related to him. He wishes. Actually, it'd be cool. I don't know. I don't really know enough about him. Seems like a decent actor. What movies I've seen from him? Holes. Saw him in Holes. I haven't really watched the Transformers. I don't know. Actually, I guess I haven't seen him that much. I don't know. Anyways, USA fucking sucks. Yeah, let's get that comment and dude out of here. I don't think people fell for anything. Yeah, thanks, no use. Hey, just remember. So I actually, if you're gonna be here and you want to criticize, you want to disagree, I think that's a beautiful thing, right? We're not all gonna agree on everything, and we shouldn't, right? You don't want groupthink and shit like that. But I don't actually believe in free speech. Like I don't believe like you can just come in here and fucking yap and say whatever the fuck you want. Just because you're in an online space and you don't get to actually fucking feel the consequences of that kind of behavior and that kind of rhetoric real time. That's really important. So like, if anything, you should be more respectful in these kinds of spaces, right? Um, because you really are just free to say whatever, and words really can be incredibly cruel, right? And can inflict pain upon people, unless you're a fucking robot, right? And then, are you like self-admittedly saying you're not human? Like that shit's weird, right? The anti like emotional, anti-empathy crowd, like the little boys that separate logic from emotion, right? For starters, like emotion is like innately human, right? Like literally, it's innately human, and logic's a fucking construct. Like literally, it's a human construct, right? To kind of evaluate rhetoric and argumentation, and right, and see kind of how strong ideas are, right? Soundness and validity, all this good shit. So like this idea that you would like make logic more important than emotion is incredibly silly. It's incredibly anti-human. To me, it's like usually like people who like bastardize fucking stoicism and shit like that and just don't understand it, or they just like kind of pick and pull, which is like everything, right? Everyone always picks and pulls out of these fucking things, right, to suit their little fucking narrative in the moment. So, oh, the mosquitoes are back, motherfucking mosquitoes, bro. Do I believe in karma? I don't really understand karma enough to like believe in it. I don't believe in karma the way I hear most people talk about it, to be honest. But I don't feel like I know enough about karma to say like whether I do or don't believe in it. About I'd be open to hearing someone who I felt like maybe had like a more in-depth understanding of it than like the kind of like vapid ways I hear people use it within our society today. Which I know myself I'm guilty of. Right, I say it kind of cheaply. But like I don't know. I don't really know if I understand it well enough to actually say I do or don't believe in it. Which congressman do I think is doing the most work right now? I really do think that like Bernie and AOC are doing a good thing. I don't like their rhetoric on Israel, right? They still kind of use that Israel has a right to defend itself, right? They still kind of say that this is a war, right? They need a ceasefire. I don't like these things. Call it for what the fuck it is. It's a genocide. We don't need a fucking ceasefire. There's not two fucking equally warring fucking parties. This is a motherfucking genocide. Call it what it is. I don't like that shit. And when I say I don't like that shit, that's really fucking charitable, right? But I do think that within like the lens of like the USA, right? If you're gonna put your good old America hat on, I think that there are some progressive politicians like Rashida Tlaib, um, AOC, Bernie. I think that they're probably as good as you got right now within the USA, man. Unless you want to start getting some real fucking commies in there and start fucking primarying people in, right? Again, there's a reason why historically, if you want to be an anti-fascist, right? Let's go through history lesson. There's a reason why historically, and it's not just a poem, but it's an observable historical fact, right? There's a reason why when you look at political elimination, right, identification and elimination, when the fascists really do pop up and actually gain complete control on the reins of all this shit, right? Complete control of the reins on this shit. What do? They do go after the communists, the socialists, right? The anarchists, the syndicalists, right? They do fucking try and take down trade unions, right? Kind of educational institutions, right? The press. But those political groups I mentioned, they take them out first for a reason because they actually have teeth to them. They have true analytical tools that understand the situation, right? Not just at a surface level where you can identify the symptoms and mistake them for diseases, but actually understand the true disease underneath all this shit, right? Which is imperialism, right? Which is capitalism, which is the colonialism, right? Colonialism at its motherfucking core, right? Which is the idea of hierarchy based on these divisions of humanity that lessen some people, right? That strip them of their value, right? That dehumanize them and make them less than, right? And then justify the haves and the have-nots, right? Oftentimes through some divine fucking bullshit. Um, so yeah, I don't know. What's up, stick person? Yeah, yeah, I don't know that I love any politician to be honest. Like I just saw Bernie. So I just saw Bernie and AOC in Folsom last week. I think it was Tuesday night. Now I'm looking back. They were here Tuesday night, and something that really hit me, man, was just I didn't feel like I was with my people there. Like I didn't feel like I was one with the crowd. And this is not to hate on the people that were there, like to hate on Bernie or AOC. Because I think the people that were there, and I kind of wrote about this in my Substack. By the way, I write a lot in Substack. Check it out if you are so inclined. If you like this live, I would suggest go check it out. I don't make anyone have to pay for anything. Everything that I post is free. So go give it a free follow if you want to see the content. But anyways, so I was there, and the biggest thing to me is like it didn't feel like a rally. It didn't feel like political opposition. It didn't feel like resistance. It felt like a political concert. And I'm not trying to hate at all because I think a lot of the people that were there, like the sense that I got kind of listening to conversations, kind of taking it all in. the sense that I got is there was a lot of people who were kind of either new to the scene, um, or were kind of like, back into the scene in some sense. But they really still believe in America, right? They really still believe in the USA. I really got like a sense of like patriotism in the crowd, right? But I'm not a patriot, bro. Like I don't believe in America, right? I did at one point in my life, right? I did, and this is not. I'm not trying to project myself who I used to be onto that crowd right now, right? But at one point in time, I was a secular conservative, man. Like I grew up thinking like that people like fucking what Michael Savage, Hannity, even back in the day with Combs and stuff. Like I thought like, oh, like this is interesting, right? Like, so I'm not trying to hate on the crowd that was there because they're like they're farther along than I was at that point in time when it comes to some of the things I was thinking about, like within the USA and what I thought about like the Constitution, for example, and stuff like that in our history. Um, but I think the problem I have is that if you really care about human rights, again, right? Remember the name of this live, right? Do you believe in human rights? If you really do believe in concepts like access, right, in concepts like inclusion, right, in concepts like equity and diversity, I think you have to believe in human rights, and that means like your group has to fucking include people, has to actually give people access to that shit. And if access is hard for them, you got to find ways to facilitate that and fucking encourage it and make it happen, right? That's like what it really means to like believe in human rights is that we all deserve dignity, right? We all like deserve like, dude, this is existence. Like none of us like is God, right? The world doesn't revolve around any of us individually, right? We all get like this brief little access to what existence is, right? And that shit connects all of us. So honestly, if you don't believe in human rights, like if I have to argue about this shit with you at this point in time, given everything that we can see and have access to, like I don't got fucking time for you. And I think the problem is to be pro USA, to be pro capitalism is inherently anti human rights. When you look at so much of the destabilization across the globe, right? When you look at the supply chains across the globe, when you look at how we move so much of our goods and things like that, and what's required from a U.S. perspective to maintain our corporations' position atop the globe, right? To maintain our military's position across the globe, right? To maintain our kind of influence within the UN, right? Within the IMF, within the World Bank, and all these things. Quite clearly, we are not a pro-human rights country. We're not a pro-human rights culture. We're not a pro-human rights society. We're incredibly anti-human rights. And so the people that still fly this flag with pride, the people that still attach themselves to these institutions, the people that still kind of think of themselves as like, good old Americans, to me, they're incredibly misguided at best, right? And so that crowd, while I think they had good intentions, while I think they recognize that Trump's a threat, and he is, dude, Trump's the existential threat right now. I'm not going to like deny that. Like, obviously, that's fucking 1, 2, and 3 that we got to fucking stop right now. But these people to think that like the institutions that breed these very things are the answer are so misguided, and it's really hard to feel at home with them. So while I think a lot of people had really good intent, while I think they were there for a lot of the good reasons and the right reasons, and there's definitely a lot better of a crowd than that like 15 to 20% of just absolute shit stains we're talking about, maybe 30% of them honestly at this point. I just think that a lot of American society is incredibly misguided. Like, if we think that Trump's a fascist, and when I say if we think, we know he is, right? But if that's the thought process, right? Because like thoughts have to match words, have to match actions, right? We think, we come to a careful consideration, right? We then use words that should match that careful consideration to convey what we're thinking so we can reach understanding, and then we should act in a way that's aligned with that shit, right? So if we think and we carefully consider it and we analyze and we come to the conclusion that Donald Trump is a fascist, right, an overt fascist, well, now we have to start to ask ourselves, where did this fascism come from? When did it begin? What are the things that drive it? How did it get here? Right? And to me, dude, I might be tracing this shit back hundreds of years, right? This might actually be just something kind of, good old ancient America, right? And its glory of 250 years, right? We've been around so long, right? Such an ancient and impressive culture. It's an anti-culture. That's what we are, right? Homo sapiens have been around for 300K, right? 300K years. We've been around for 250. We are an infant, we're a toddler culture, and we fucking act like it, so many of us. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with a lot of this shit right now. It's difficult to build coalition, to build community with people who fundamentally don't understand the core issues are deeper than Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the face of it. He's the worst of it. He's the most overt. He's the one that is slapping us right now. But this shit has been, in a modern sense, and I say modern, like literally like the last 200 years, been building in a lot of ways, going up and down in ways we don't consider. But again, like the question we've asked almost every live lately is, when did the genocide end? Right? If America was established on genocide, if Trump's a fascist, well, hey, wait, Trump's a fascist, and the USA was established on genocide. And what do we call the perpetrators of like genocide? What do we call like the perpetrators of like what's happening in Israel right now, right? With U.S. support, right? With U.S. bombs, with U.S. funding, with U.S. protection, with U.S. cheers, with right? Like, what do you call the perpetrators of those who bomb children and bomb women and have them displaced day to day, week to week, month to month, just to fucking bomb them somewhere else, right? To fucking take out their homes, to take out their schools, to take out their hospitals, to take out their churches, to take out their culture, take out everything that makes them who they are, right? What do you call the people who do these things? These are fascists, right? These are colonizers. These are imperialists. These are capitalists, right? These are the big powers. These are the entities that benefit and profit off these things. And they will do everything they can to maintain their hold on the mechanisms that drive this world, right? And so if we have to ask ourselves, when did the genocide end? There's probably some truth to the fact that America's always been a fascist nation. It's just, what level of privilege were you afforded within it that allowed yourself to maybe kind of be delusional and not think that this was the case, and you actually kind of bought into the myth of American democracy, right? The myth of the American Constitution, right? The myth of American due process, the myth of American freedom, right? If these things that we consider sacred and belonging to all people are selective, by definition, they're not true. And by definition, they're a fucking myth. And the next question becomes, to what level, right? And that's what the fight's always been. The fight's always been, to what level is the myth true and not true, right? That's kind of the paradox of reform. So, yeah, so paradoxalism to me is kind of the understanding that so much of like what we run into and encounter in life seems kind of contradictory, right? And I think that truth kind of exists within the tension of things. And so like oftentimes, like let's say you and I are having a conversation and a lot of people like hit this point where we'll agree to disagree. I don't think you can actually really agree to disagree. And hear me out. If something's a fact, right? If something's like actually observable fact, like we can measure it, right? A number, it's quantifiable, something that we both kind of agree upon, like, like measure my height, right? Okay, he's 6'2", great. We can agree to that, right? Through like an actual system of measurement and observation to a point that we call this measurement objective, right? If someone disagrees with that, they don't disagree with that. That simply is. Like, they're just wrong, right? Now, take something like the Beatles. I think the Beatles fucking suck, and I will always maintain this. They're musical fucking terrorists. They make my ears want to fucking bleed. It's fine. I know a lot of people love them, and I'm not denying they're incredibly influential. It's all good, right? They did rip some people, but that's fine. You can't disagree with that either. That's my perspective. That's how I hear someone's form of expression, right, through music and, words, if you want to call them that, whatever sometimes, right? That's their form of expression, right? And then I receive that, and it doesn't really do it for me. You can't disagree with that either. All you can do is explain your perspective, how you take that shit in, how it makes you feel, and then we can swap that, right? And we can talk about that. And then maybe we identify with the same fucking thing, and then we kind of bond over that shit. But even then, I can't disagree with your perspective no more than you can disagree with my perspective, right? Unless my perspective is grounded in observable, like evidence-based things that are wrong, right? Well, I think the Beatles are the best because they sold this many albums. Well, that claim could be true or not, right? That could be like, and we can observe that based on numbers of albums they sold, right? And so, basically, I don't really believe in agree to disagree. I think that when we run into that tension point, that's where we got some shit to figure out. So you better buckle up intellectually and have some fucking courage, right? So that's what paradoxalism is to me. Understanding the contradictions, so oftentimes there are limitations in our own frameworks, our own language, our own thinking, right? We're so bought into what is, and we think this is like so fixed and so just eternal when it's not, right? We're a fucking fart. So, also appreciate you guys being here, man. I've actually, this has been a good live. Remember, we do this most Sundays and Thursdays. Sometimes life happens, so I try to be here most of the time. I make no promises. If I am here, the lives go up the next day on YouTube. So if you do miss a live, it's no big deal, right? I know shit happens. There's more important things in the world than me. It hurts me to say, but I get it. So if you do miss a live, no big deal. Check out YouTube. I post them the next day. Also, the Substack's a great place to be. Honestly, I've been spamming my Substack. I just kind of be just posting and spraying on there. So you do get a little more insight into some of my thoughts on some things. I'm trying to interact more over there, like in the group chat feature and stuff like that. It's still a pretty new platform to me, but I really like it. I think it has potential, and I'm more of a writer at heart anyways. So please check out the link in my bio. Check out the Substack. If you disagree with some of the things we're talking about, if you want like a little more of an explanation, right, or you just want to talk about these things more, again, Substack's a great place. Hit me up. I'd love to kind of flesh it out with people. I think that I know I myself am a little bit intellectually starved in the society that we live in, right? America thrives on this anti-intellectualism. So if you enjoy these types of conversations, let's keep linking up with people who enjoy them, right? I'm going to try to be a little more social. I can be a little bit reclusive sometimes. But long story short, appreciate everyone being here. I hope you all have a great night. Fuck the USA, and remember to meet the media.